It's a phrase perhaps that was initiated or born out of frustration from one or more individuals, and has become a concept that is actually fairly widely articulated amongst our employer clients, and usually by rightly or wrongly, as you say, it's that generational tension, or what seems to be a generational tension. And it's really a summary phrase of talking about or referring to a situation where someone feels that an employee that they're dealing with, and it's typically a manager that might be dealing with an employee reporting to them who might be generationally different, is behaving in a manner that is different and challenges the way that particular manager thinks that particular employee should be behaving in that particular situation. And it's different because it's fundamentally different to how that manager was behaving, or at least thinks that he or she was behaving as an employee back in their day. And I think because some of the language that is often used is perhaps a lot more assertive, a lot more direct, there's not the trappings of deference to management nowadays as there has been in yesteryear. That's coming across as though an employee feels that they are entitled. Of course, as you say, we've all probably been guilty of entitlement. Some jokingly say that they're entitled to feel entitled, but be it as it may, it's causing a lot of issues in a workplace context.
Joydeep, is this generational? Is it such that the current younger generation, it's perhaps more of an issue that they have that entitlement mentality?
I do think it is generational, and it's something that we have a reasonable amount of exposure to in the kinds of issues and cases and claims that we are seeing. And it comes through very clearly in the assertiveness and determination with which those who are entering the workforce go about asserting and claiming their rights. And they will use language such as, you, the employer, are not allowed to do this. I have rights in relation to this. I have expectations in relation to certain things. And I think a lot of that comes from the focus in the education system around concepts that are perhaps being educated earlier on, whether it's consent, whether it's in relation to bullying, whether it's in relation to harassment. And so the generation of people who are leaving school these days is a lot better educated in terms of rights. Perhaps not so as well educated about their responsibilities as they should be, but they're certainly very well educated about their rights, and they're bringing that into the workforce. So it absolutely is generational, at least it starts as being generational. But then once that gets infused into a workplace culture or an organisation, it starts to straddle across a number of generations, and then it ceases to become a pure generational issue, and then it becomes endemic.
So Joydeep, have employers raised this issue as a problem, and how are they dealing with it?
They have, because what they are finding is that particularly if you as an employer are dealing with a wide cross-section of the population, be that generationally, be that through other demographic data points, what you find is that you will have a group of your employees who will not raise particular issues, who will be a lot more accommodating, understanding, even supportive of what management wants to do. And a good example of this would be, for example, in relation to hybrid working from home, returning people back to the office, where there's a particular segment of the workforce will say, look, I'll do whatever my employer or whatever my manager tells me I have to do, because that's kind of my job, and that's the level of power that I have as an employee. Whereas there are others who will say, well, no, I'm going to push back on what you're saying is your workplace policy, because I'm going to prove to you that policy is silly, that policy is outdated, that policy is premised on things that don't make sense. So that is one very clear and current manifestation of how this entitlement mentality, or perceived entitlement mentality, is causing a lot of problems for employers. I think in terms of what employers should and can do about it, there's certainly no easy answers to this. They do need to be aware of this as an issue. I don't think it's going to be helped by them calling it out and labelling it as such, but they need to really try to almost introduce within their organisations cultural reform by being clearer around what good looks like from a mentality point of view amongst all of their workforce, and then translate that into behaviours that they are expecting. And you can do that in a heavy-handed way if you so choose, but it's probably not going to be as helpful as doing it in a more supportive and educative way. I think that's going to be the real challenge for employers in dealing with this.
So I guess the question is, Joydeep, is this likely to become more of a problem? Depending, I guess, on how the current younger generation, what their needs and demands are.
I think it will continue to become a very big problem. And if I go back to that point around working from home and those challenges that a lot of employers might be facing in terms of bringing back people to the office or their primary place of work, one of the reasons why that has become a problem, and I think that feeds the perceived validity of the entitlement mindset, is because what has been arguably shown is that the thinking prior to the pandemic that people have to come to work in order to be productive and do their job was effectively thrown out the window over the last few years. So employees look at that and say, well, why should we believe you as our employer when we've got this data point that says what you've been telling us actually is not true? And when you needed to have us work from home, we were all very productive. Your business is still there. You didn't collapse, certainly because of the pandemic and people working from home. So if we now assert that we are entitled to work from home, we're doing so not because we're being difficult, belligerent, problematic, adversarial. We're doing so because we actually believe that the evidence backs up that stated point of view. And I think the more of those data points that continue to exist, the bigger a problem this is going to be for employers and ultimately for the employment relationship. And therein lies the real problem.